Okay, so we're here with Kody Chamberlain from Sweets, and welcome.
Hi, glad to be here.
You got some questions for him? Or? Oh, so he has a French version of Sweets now out. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, Delcor approached me. They're a French publisher, and they do a lot of American translations. And I was a fan of their work even before they approached me. And I met them at Comic-Con in San Diego. Great people. They brought some samples for me. Really impressed with it. And so we basically agreed on a deal, and now I'm doing a Sweets en français.
Nice.
So they've got distribution going on in...
Yeah, French-speaking countries, so I'm assuming it'll be in parts of Canada too, and maybe West Africa. I'm not sure how far their reach goes, but
Yeah.
Awesome.
as
That's
many
exciting.
French-speaking countries as possible, and including South Louisiana.
Yeah,
I'm gonna
it
try
should
to
be
bring
a-
some down here. We don't have distribution here yet, oddly enough, but I'm going to try to bring some down and get them in local stores.
And you'll be at New Orleans Comic Con to sell those.
I will be. Yeah, I'll have a few on hand. Not very many. The quantity is very limited because I have to ship them in. So.
Yep.
At $40, that's a steal.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I was asking you earlier. I'm gonna ask you this again for everyone. We were talking about the horse track at the beginning. He was kind of talking about that, and I asked if you knew about that or you just kind of made it up or what.
Yeah, the story, I had heard the story before. I can't even remember who. It's an old story about Metairie Cemetery in New Orleans and how it came to be. And apparently there was a country club, and the country club is still there, but it was much bigger at the time. And there was a gentleman trying to get into the country club, and they wouldn't let him in. And the story goes that out of spite, he bought the country club and shut it down and turned it into a cemetery. So if you actually go to Metairie Cemetery in New Orleans, you can still see the horse track as a street now that you can, it's a circular street that you can drive around. And his name was Howard. I gave him a little cameo. His grave actually has a cameo in the back of the book.
Oh, wow.
But it's a fun little story, one of those interesting things that I thought worked in context with the storyline.
It's really cool. I love all the New Orleans stuff in there too. It's great.
And the praline recipe is an actual family recipe. People ask all the time if it's really a thing. I was like, yeah, I cook them at home. One of the other podcasts I did an interview with a while back actually did a cooking show. And they actually made the pralines on the podcast and the video podcast, and they had a taste test and everything. It was pretty awesome.
That's
we should
cool.
do that Cool. for our movie marathon. Go ahead
We're doing
and make
that.
them. Yeah.
Should definitely do it. They
Yeah.
are fantastic. And this recipe is unusual because it uses dark brown sugar. It's really rich. They're fantastic.
Wow. So your family didn't mind you putting the recipe?
No one cares. No one's complained. So.
Okay.
And it's a great archive. If you ever lose a recipe, you buy the book and it's in there.
There you go.
So is this the only book that's completely yours, written and drawn?
Well, I'm writing new stuff now. Oddly enough, the first story I ever did in comics is a story I wrote. It's a story called Intrinsic Dreams. It was a short story in an anthology. And I had written it as actually a 22-page story. And the anthology only had room for us. I think it was an 8 or 10-page section that they gave us. So I brought in a writer friend of mine to help me chop it. His name's Troy Wall. He's actually in North Louisiana. And so that was my first published story, is one that I wrote. So my intention all along is to write and draw my own work. It just took me a while to get there creatively, where I thought I was good enough to really handle it and be able to do it in a high enough quality to where I could actually feel good about putting it on the market.
Cool.
But that is the plan, is to write and draw as much as my own stuff as I can. I actually have 3 new scripts in progress. One's pretty close. It's called The Fixers. It's about organized crime in New Orleans, and that one's almost ready to get drawn.
That's awesome. Oh, you know about the timeline of when it would be out?
No, I'm doing a few side projects right now for other publishers, covers and short stories and stuff like that. So as soon as I finish my schedule off with those things that I already have scheduled, this will be the next project.
So you're a busy guy then.
Yeah, very busy. I'm hoping to really start drawing it maybe early December, mid-December, somewhere in there.
I just read this last week, so it's still all fresh in my mind. It's a great story.
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
And I love the
having
art.
some issues with that.
Yeah, the mic transfer.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, growing pains. A little spoiler for you guys, if you want it. Go back to the cover here. If you look very closely in the sky behind the city on the paperback is the killer's face. You can see his
Oh,
eye
wow.
and his nose and his
Ooh.
mouth.
I do have a question.
That's
Okay, so
awesome.
when he reads the words and he does what they said, where did that come from? Like, why is he doing that? I wasn't really sure of that.
Well, to talk about that on mic would be a very big spoiler. The setup, I can give you the setup for it. I won't necessarily explain the twist, but the setup is that the killer is schizophrenic. And there are several different types of schizophrenia. A lot of people are aware of the voices in someone's head, but there's also another version or a variation on that where words actually transform into other words, or you see things, you see text that's not there. And so that's a one I use because I thought it'd be very visual for the comic. And so he's seeing the hallucinations in his brain, and they're telling him who to kill, and he pretty much has to obey it. And when he, it's an impulse thing. It's uncontrollable urge, and so he's got to murder those people. And so the text that you see in the background, kind of rapping on the walls and stuff, is actually telling him who to kill. Yeah. And that's that type of schizophrenia that they're trying to treat him for in the medical research. Yeah.
Can you tell us like a little bit about how the story came about, like the evolution of the story, how you thought of it, and like influences maybe?
My writing process is probably a little bit different than other people in that anytime I get an idea or a concept or a character, I make these little note cards, little small index cards, and I pin them up to the wall. And I had a notion of the ending of the story, the finale. I had a notion of that. It wasn't all figured out, but that was one of the earliest pieces to come into play. And I was already started working with these two cops. The banter and the scene, some of the scenes I was already kind of playing with, and I realized that they were really the same story. So I took these two things that I was sort of loosely working on separately, put them together, and the pieces started to fall into place. In the writing process, when I use the note cards, I add and remove scenes as needed, and I basically create my outline in note card version. And then I do the script. I do write full script based on the outline in the note cards.
Do the note cards on the wall ever tell you to kill anyone?
They have, yes.
Did you have to obey?
It's an impulse.
Plead the fifth. But it's a great metaphor to play with in comics, is that visual form of hallucination. And I hadn't seen it done before in a comic. So I thought it'd be fun to play with.
Yeah.
It's definitely an original idea. And I know we're really excited to have you. It's exciting that there's so many original artists in Lafayette.
Yeah, Lafayette all of a sudden has a great art scene. It seemed like for years I was the only artist in town doing comics. And then I met Rob Guillory. Actually, he was at the student paper at the time doing a strip there. And we both, agreed that, wow, we thought we were the only people. Now there's two of us, and then so over time we've met new people. The Internet's helped a lot with connecting people. And we're even growing new artists. There are some of the artists that have been coming to our Drink and Draw Social Club on Wednesdays. Some of those artists have been inspired to start comics now. And so some of them are very early in the process, still learning, revising everything. But I think really in the next 2 to 5 years, we're going to have a massive comic scene here.
That's awesome. That's really exciting.
Yeah. I know how Jason Bienvenu talked about how it was so great to have you guys in town, because if he's ever stuck on anything or needed some advice, that you guys
It's great for them. It wasn't great. I didn't have anybody to kind of ask questions. I was kind of flying solo the first couple years, and it took me a really long time to, I had to make a lot of mistakes to kind of find my way through it. So because that was such a pain for me now, when these artists that are in our group that are coming up and they have questions, I'm always there to kind of try to help them, and Rob does the same thing. And now even I saw him giving advice to people today too. So it's kind of a great thing where you think about the Seattle music scene or even Austin or Nashville, the way those things sort of spawn. I think it is that way. The strength of the community creates new artists, and not only creates them, but people that were maybe thinking of getting into it, maybe talk themselves out of it. Those people now have a support system to sort of, to watch someone jump off the cliff and survive. You're more likely to jump off the cliff yourself, I guess.
So you said you're from Thibodaux. What drew you to Lafayette?
I moved here for college. There was a professor at UL named Dutch Kepler, very well-known design professor at the time, and I just heard about him. I heard great things. I had spoken to some of his students, and they all vouched for him, and so I transferred from Nichols to UL to study under him. And I ended up really liking the city, and I've been here since, I think I moved here in '93, and I've been here ever since. I really like it. I get to travel a lot for comics to the trade shows and conventions and stuff, and I can't imagine living anywhere but here. It's my favorite city.
Mine too.
Yeah.
Me too.
We're
I agree.
biased, though.
And I also have, I will have it in New Orleans, but I also have the script book for Sweets, which I didn't pull one out. It's the entire script, all 114 pages, and every thumbnail I've drawn for the whole book. 114 pages of thumbnails with it, in addition to character designs, cover concept sketches, stuff like that.
That's really cool.
I think it's about 136 pages of material, supplemental material for the Sweets paperback.
Wow, that's really
Awesome. Pick up both.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And, I probably will do some sort of discounted set at the New Orleans Comic-Con.
So yeah, that's exciting because we'll all be there also. So
Cool.
and
Come
when is
harass you.
that?
Yeah, please. Please.
The
November
date?
30th.
November 30th in
That's
New
right.
Orleans.
Right.
And we'll all be in Artist Alley. I think everyone's coming.
Yay.
So we'll have at least 4 or 5 comic creators from Lafayette representing in New Orleans.
That's
Yes.
exciting.
Do you have any favorite comics you're reading right now?
Duncan Fagredo's work on Hellboy has really been fantastic. I've enjoyed that. All the Parker books that Darwin Cook's been doing at IDW are amazing. I actually just picked up the MacGyver book. Tony Lee is a friend of mine, the writer on that, so I'm excited to check that one out. I've also been getting into the Dark Horse has been putting out Creepy Archives, the original Creepy from back in the day, so I've been enjoying those. And there's a couple things I picked up recently, but those are really the kind of things I've been focused on.
Yeah.
They're more. I more often follow creators than I do properties necessarily, but I have been reading the new Batman that Greg Capullo's drawing. He's one of my favorite artists. I think the guy's amazing, so I've been buying that and a few other things.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sweet.
I know we had.
We've
more
been trying to
questions.
think of a good verses.
Oh
like,
yeah,
every
so
week,
every
yeah.
week we do heroes or villains versus. I know last week we did Animal
Punisher,
Man.
no, Punisher versus Black Widow.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know. That's tough. Probably Punisher, right? He's a little more.
I said
he's a
Punisher.
little
They
more
all said
ruthless.
Black Widow.
We said Black
Yeah, we
Widow.
we decided
Yeah.
we
I
broke
honestly
down
don't know a
the-
lot about Black Widow.
We had to research. She's
Okay,
got
all right.
some.
There's a lot of
She's
girl
a lot
power
more
going on.
badass than you
Nice,
think.
nice.
slightly
I understand.
more superhuman abilities than.
Well,
have
speaking
been
of
let
Punisher,
on.
did you guys see the Punisher Dirty Laundry short film?
No.
No.
Must watch. It's
Yeah.
actually Tom Jane.
Oh,
and it's a
I saw
short-
the beginning of
it's
it.
fantastic. You guys
I was
see
at
it.
work though, and my
It
boss
was
walked in.
surprisingly good. I
Yeah.
really enjoyed it.
I know because he was in one of the Punisher films.
That's right.
With,
I thought he made a great Punisher. The flaws I had with it were mostly in the script.
Yeah, John
But as far as
Travolta
a
did a
Punisher
really amazing
goes, I think he was really good.
And I know he wasn't happy with it, so then he went ahead and wanted to do the short or whatever.
The short's really great. It's basically the Punisher is doing laundry and gets into a little trouble.
We'll put the link for it below for
Yeah,
anybody
it's really
that
good.
wants to
I
watch
highly
it.
recommend it.
Well, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the time.
I know that we're going to want you to visit us again in the future.
Okay, maybe
So-
in New Orleans we can do something before or
Yeah,
after the
sounds
good.
show, something like that.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Cool.
All right, thanks.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, that's all we have time for. So, oh, it's okay.
Oh, I think we had somebody else's phone go off also earlier.
Hey.
Wait, what? Oh, yeah.
Lauren.
Anyway, that's all we have time for. Thanks for watching and listening, and we will see you next week.
Bye.
See you.
Bye.
Bye.